what you're going to be doing when you hire this first salesperson is bringing on someone who can simply add to what is currently winning, not be the one that takes over all of it, because that's a huge risk to put on the business.
Yeah, that's so good. Clay, I got a coffee fact for you.
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about increasing revenue, ramping up those conversions, and a little bit about coffee.
Clay, I've got a coffee fact for you.
Okay.
It's actually more of a question and an opinion.
Ooh.
I also just want to note here, I don't have my normal gooseneck to do my pour over, okay? So don't come at me, you coffee connoisseurs out there.
It looks very fancy.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a cool pour over.
Yeah.
Here's the fact and idea. When should parents allow their children to drink coffee? Better yet, like what age should you start to drink coffee?
Okay, well, I'm going to kick back to when did you start drinking coffee?
So what's interesting about me, I went my whole life through college not drinking coffee. I started drinking coffee at 21 years old.
Okay.
And I started drinking coffee because I was actually working at a coffee shop. And the reason I enjoyed it was because someone actually taught me.
Wait, you started working at a coffee shop before you started drinking coffee?
Yeah, because it was all management, sales, leadership. Okay. And I was excited by it and building the shop. Anyway, I started then. And the only reason I started then was because someone taught me the craft of it. I love learning the intricacies of something. So I started at 21. Here's my take as a parent.
Yep.
For my coffee. I now have to sneeze. I'm allergic to something. Here's my take on when someone should drink coffee. Never.
Oh, man.
And I always say that to really rile some people up out there. You don't need coffee.
Yeah.
That's my belief. I don't need coffee. And I've talked about this in other facts. Don't drink coffee for a while. If you're reliant on it, you should probably stop.
Okay.
And I do stop every so often.
I will say the number one search on Google for this is actually a search result from CNN. It says, it's not okay to let kids drink coffee. So why do we do it?
Ooh,
I'm going to just leave it at that challenge.
I agree. Kids shouldn't have coffee.
Yeah. My kids ask for coffee and I say, no, you don't need it.
No.
You got way too much energy already.
And again, it's the need thing. I enjoy a good cup of it's like enjoying whiskey. Like I enjoy the craft of things. I don't think people there shouldn't be a should or a need. If you want to get into real good coffee, let's have a conversation because I want to talk about it all day long.
Less is more.
It's the need thing that
Well, and I will also say, I mean, we got a health epidemic, and then we're going to talk about marketing at some point, but we have a health epidemic, and I think it's because we actually don't like coffee as a country. We like sugar.
We like sugar and addictions.
There you go. Now, speaking of addictions and
or
sugar,
when you should do things.
When you should do things, I'm going to segue here. When should you be hiring your first salesperson? When are you grown up enough as a business to hire your first salesperson?
You know, when I think about this question, I wonder if business owners think about it from a revenue standpoint. When I'm at $500,000, then I'll start. When I'm at 5 million, then I'll hire a few more. And actually, I truthfully never been someone who has done the hiring of a salesperson, but I've been a business owner. I've been I've been a salesperson on teams. You know, it's an interesting context to think about, like, what is the breaking point?
Yeah.
What is the time or effort? Usually if you're the founder or you're the CEO, you've been doing it this whole time. And so you've gone through it multiple times.
Yep.
I'm guessing it hasn't been a revenue breaking point.
No.
Right? Because all businesses are different.
Yeah.
Right. And what's the turnover and what, so to me, I wonder in your seat, like, what's the tension feel like?
Yeah. Well, first, every business is different. and it's not going to be a revenue number that marks when you should hire your first salesperson. Because you can structure sales roles so differently. I mean, some businesses, you don't need to have a commission-based, incentive-based person because it's almost a secretary, or I don't think that's the proper term, executive assistant, or someone that's doing intake almost. So what I think really we should be asking ourselves is not when to, it's when not to hire the first salesperson. So you shouldn't be hiring a salesperson if you haven't identified your product or service that you're selling. It's when you should, or when you don't have a clear process that you have already proven. You don't have to have the process written down, but if you can't consistently say, hey, yeah, this is my conversion rate when I, as the owner, am closing. And now we are, just to be clear, we're talking about startups and small businesses where the owner is taking himself or herself out of the sales seat and putting someone else in. Obviously, budget is always a concern, and structure the compensation package to match your business growth goals. I mean, normally, it's not good to hire a salesperson that you need to go out hunting where they are not compensated on bringing something back. So there's got to be some sort of commission structure or a bonus structure or something for that salesperson, because the good salespeople out there will be motivated by that. So only in the rarest of circumstances. So like, for example, a couple of my clients in previous businesses, it was very intake heavy. So lots of inbound leads, and it was really just, let's just close them. And it was intake. So yes, I'll take your order kind of thing. That you just need someone who's kind, personable, and capable. And you don't need to pay them out the wazoo either, because it really doesn't, there's not much pressure on them to close deals.
I want to pause there because there's a presumption here with that business owner, with great intake, there had to have been some great marketing set up. And so something that I think about in this, when do I hire my first salesperson is, and maybe it's not for this conversation today, but it's like, when do I start putting money into marketing versus hiring that first salesperson? And because I've had a conversation with a couple of business owners about that. It's like, oh, we need to get our development built up. We need to get our sales built up before we do this marketing effort. And so again, maybe that's a bigger conversation for another time, but
I think the key is having some sort of process on the sales front is important, but not necessarily being staffed up. So you've got to have foundations in place on the marketing front, making sure your brand is represented well, messaging is clear, all of that. And that can all happen before the first salesperson. The last thing you want to do, though, is hire someone and rely completely on them for the success of the business.
I've seen so many
that is going to fail every time. So don't do that. What you're going to be doing when you hire this first salesperson is bringing on someone who can simply add to what is currently winning, not be the one that takes over all of it, because that's a huge risk to put on the business.
That's so good.
Eventually they will pick up on it, but yeah, those are my thoughts on hiring your first salesperson. I'd say leading indicators would be you've got a clear process for selling someone, whether it's on a service or a product. You have a proven process that has closed them. So it's not necessarily written down, but you as the owner know what to do, so you can get it written down and hand it off. And you need to have a good CRM to be able to manage those deals, because as soon as you add that first salesperson, it is now going to be the owner or whoever was managing sales and this other salesperson. And you've got to be able to reward each individual person. So having a good CRM like HubSpot or Rocket Fuel, those are all really good for newer businesses starting out at the very beginning. So but I will say, it is really important, and I'll give some success stories. So I knew early on in the wedding space, when I was doing wedding videography about 15 years ago, I knew that my ideal audience was primarily brides. Wasn't talking to too many grooms. And it was primarily intake. They saw what I sold and they're like, I want that. Please give it to me. But I found that when I put a female that was in the target audience of that bride, it made it so much more successful. And I don't know if it's even legal for me to say that, but that's how it works is you want to put someone in that seat of sales who looks like, acts like, and understands the problems that your customer faces. So really it's why if you put a 20-something in a 20-something person fresh in their career in a seat that sells to 60-year-old individuals, it's not going to go well because there's not going to be trust.
They better be an old soul.
They better be an old soul.
8 a.m. bedtime, 8 p.m. bedtime. That's what we're talking here. This is a really, I love how succinct, we're just talking about getting into that next step process. We've talked about it a lot in other episodes. We've got a really great kind of like entry level way with some of our fractional executive retainers, almost to help someone get into that space. You mentioned getting an executive assistant to like help with some inbound stuff, but we've done other elements that I think give access and give away to that first salesperson and helping them build that system. And I think we do a really good job at like helping building those systems so that a sales team could be stood up. And so I think if these are conversations or thoughts you've ever had, I think there's a lot of founders out there who are thinking, I need to expand and I need help, right? Like you're probably stuck in that tension. I think it's actually just great. Just hit Clay or I up and let's have that conversation about where you're at and what your system is like. And in the meantime, share it with a friend. Make sure you grab a really good cup of coffee.
Always.
And share that with a friend too.
Always.
Amen.
Absolutely.